I think we're headed for a place that is way different than any other generation.
You were in another country that has socialist tendencies. Was it rampant poverty and people starving in the streets? And
well, I was a little
misery?
concerned about our podcast. You might have noticed I was extra polite last week.
A system of socialized medicine is like a flashpoint that people are ready to take up arms over.
You know what? She's like, I'd love to meet a dork. I'd love to meet somebody that doesn't know how to dress and doesn't look cool. And I'm like, what?
Welcome to Bourbon and Rum, the podcast dedicated to civil conversation. I'm Kent, I like rum, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle, I like bourbon. I tend to be a little more conservative. We're brothers talking politics over bourbon and rum.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking one of my favorite bourbons of all time. My crazy neighbor was out traveling, and he picked me up a bottle of this stuff right here. Weller Antique 107. It is, the Weller line is a wheated bourbon, and it's basically baby Pappy, because the Pappy Van Winkle bourbons are all wheated too, and it's 107 proof. And it's about 6 to 8 years old. The Pappy, the old Rip Van Winkle 10, is the same juice at 10 years, and then Pappy 15 is the same stuff at 15 years. Now they pick much more selective barrels and stuff, but it's really a treat. What are you drinking on?
I'm drinking a Hurricane. I got some Cruzan Hurricane proof rum, and I thought, what better to pour in that than Hurricane drink mix. And I even put so that Hurricane proof is about 135, and you can see in the camera I even put a little float on top of the drink. So
oh wow,
I'm ready to rock for this conversation.
That's great.
Well, welcome back. You were in another country that has socialist tendencies. Was it rampant poverty and people starving in the streets and abject misery?
Well, I was a little concerned about our podcast. You might have noticed I was extra polite last week. No, I don't know.
Well, yeah. Hey, you had a great question that you asked, kind of coming out of some conversations that you had over your conference. Do you want to lay that out and let's maybe unpack that a little?
Yeah. I got to thinking about, we talk a lot about what's in the headlines and stuff and day to day, and I do kind of like it sometimes when we explore deeper stuff. I think hopefully people are liking the topics we pick. I think a mix is always good. Just sometimes you got to talk about stuff we want to break down in the day to day, but it's also good to think longer term or more, big picture. And we were out to dinner with a supplier one night, and they had a young guy that had just started, and he graduated college, and I don't know, we're all just chit-chatting, and we started going down this path of like, most of the people sitting at the table are my age, 40s, 50s, been in the workforce 20 to 30 years, and you start thinking about, we were talking there for a while about AI and the tools that we're using and the amazing things it does, and then it's like, wait a second, what's the world going to be like? What's the workplace going to be like when this guy's 50? 30 years from now, what does this look like? So I thought about that, and then last night my daughter had a volleyball, this beach volleyball thing, and some of her friends came to hang out. I was talking to a couple of them. A couple of these kids play baseball, and I'm thinking of, what can I sling it about? And I'm like, so does anybody in your team chew tobacco? I kind of said it jokingly, which honestly, 30 years when we were kids, that was not rare at
Red Man, Beach Nut. There were I remember the brands, for cripe's sake.
And you'd have thought, I asked, do you carry a firearm to baseball? They're like, no. And I was just laughing though, but then I was thinking about, like we do this bourbon and rum podcast. You work in a university, a bunch of young folks. You've got kids that are in their 30s. I mean, a lot, and I don't know about them, but I mean, a lot. It seems like a lot of the younger people don't drink nearly as much, right?
Yeah, completely. They haven't done super well here, but there have been, in 10 years of living in this town, there have been, I think, 3 different attempts at dry bars, like people creating night spots that don't serve alcohol. And it hasn't worked out. The problem is that there's no money in it. It's not that people didn't go. It's just, you can't make money doing it.
Yeah.
And, your question prompted me. I was thinking about this. Over the course of my career, we're on like the 3rd wave of this. When I first started in this business, there was a lot of talk, and this went on for a long time, like these millennials that are coming up, right? And it was all about these damn millennials.
Right.
Well, you look at the dates, like your oldest millennials are 40 now.
Wow.
And so, I remember vividly people griping about those millennials. They just have these different values. And I always just kind of wondered at that. The sweet spot that we're hiring for right now, I mean, we've got 30% of our staff are Gen Z, people that were born after 2000. And now, I mean, the technical cutoff is like, 2010, I think, for Gen Alpha, where you're post millennials and, post Gen Z, the new generation is almost on us.
Yeah.
Your girl, I don't want to scare you, but your girls are in this new Generation Alpha. And, you're about 3 blinks from them being in college and on the market in the workforce. So, it's here. And I've seen almost 3 full iterations of this and people griping about generational change. And I don't like it. I really like young people. One of the reasons I like working on a college campus, we employ students in our office. We have young, fresh hires. We got interns. I find that they're energetic, and I find them interesting, and I feel like it keeps me young. We've decided we may not live in this town in retirement, but being within, say, 20 minutes of a major university that's a deal breaker for us for retirement living.
Right.
I want to have my women's basketball tickets forever. I love this. And
right.
So I'm really in favor. I think your question, there's a little bit of this generational tension in your question, but honestly, you could go a different path with that too, and with the technological things and the what is stuff going to be. So maybe to answer your question, we should divide it into a couple of discrete buckets, like social and behavioral issues or cultural norms. Maybe that's one. Workforce participation, workforce trends. What's the job of the future going to look like? I don't know what. All I do is
I guess
work. So what are the other channels?
No, I guess where I was going I wasn't trying to think of it as a like a generational value judgment or anything like that. And it was more, what does the world look like?
Yeah.
And how, like, I feel like there's some of the changes that are taking place are going to be deeper than just, oh, well, this generation likes to do this generation likes to do that. It's different. I think we're headed for a place that is way different than any other generation. And I think that becomes a cliche. It's like these same people that like, this is the most important election of like, okay, like every election's important. But I think how the world is going to be different with AI is going to be just, I think it's going to be a huge difference.
So I agree. And if we wanted to dig into one thing, oh man, do I even want to like show my cards on this? I am about to look like I'm like Abe Simpson at this point. So just buckle up. But it's the dating, marriage, child rearing, social and sexual mores of these younger generation. I'm not being judgy, but it is almost unrecognizable from our age. You mentioned tobacco and alcohol, the decline in alcohol. We could look at the statistics, but the proportion of people that used cannabis in the last week versus the proportion of people that drank, and compare that to 30 years ago or 40 years ago, like it'll make your head
And
spin.
hey, that bodes well for those of us after allocated bourbon. I mean, it's going to be great. Some of the older guys die, and then the younger guys aren't going to drink it, so it's going to be perfect. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was prepping for the podcast and having a discussion with my AI friend. It's just somewhat how I sometimes prepare. But, I was thinking about, I was challenging it around like, okay, if you think about today, I think about the work that I do, and the work that a lot of people do, like buying and selling products. Do you really need somebody selling it? And do you really need somebody buying it? Or does this all just kind of happen in the background? And then if this has all happened in the background by AI, and AI is doing it all, really the only place people are going to play is either you're going to be doing work that AI can't do or a robot can't do, and maybe it just isn't economical for a robot to or an AI to do some level of work, or you're going to be running a company, and a company it may have 3 humans at it, and everybody else is automated. And so one of the things that I kind of went down this path with the AI back and forth, and you get into this thing about Elon Musk is talking about how there's going to be all this abundance, there's going to be universal basic income, which I kind of think is BS, because I think if you can make the money, you're going to make it. But I think that could be a situation where there is enough abundance to stamp out poverty. Maybe we can keep people fed, and it's going to help with diseases, and it can cure things, all that. But then it's like, it's not so much. I was asking it to come up with some pithy lines, and it said something like, it's not going to be about who gets the paychecks. It's going to be about who gets the purpose. And it's like, I mean, that sounds a little corny. And ChatGPT came up with that, but I think about that like, that to me is what could be lacking. Is today you've got millions of people at all different levels within a company, and they all have a purpose and they all got a job. If you gut that, what's people's purpose and their contribution?
It's an interesting question. This is timely. Just Friday, I got interviewed by 2 interns from another university, who a mutual friend connected me. They're doing a research project on university fundraising operations and their use of AI. And so they had some questions for me. And, I don't know how knowledgeable I am, but I am highly opinionated. And the gulf between the two. But I kind of laid it out to them. I was like, this was interesting though. They had just a handful of questions. One of their questions, these are 2 22-year-olds. They said, how do you reassure your staff who are afraid that they're going to lose their jobs to AI? And I know this is a debate. I mean, like, I know this is something that people are talking about. This is so clear to me, and we can play the tape back, and I can eat these words years from now. If you are a person who figures out how to use AI as a tool to offshore your least value, if you know what the value of your work product is, and when you're contributing and when you're coasting, and you put all the coasting shit on the AI, and you're contributing, and your reach, you've described this very process, right? Instead of laboring over a PowerPoint, you give it instructions and it's cranking them out like there's no business. The people that figure out how to wield the tool are really going to have a golden age. I believe that.
Well, I agree with you in the short term and the near term. In the next, I don't know how long, 5 to 10 years, maybe longer than that. But I guess where I was thinking about it, like, I'm using it every day for productivity and I can do more. But everything I'm doing in a more advanced world probably isn't even necessary.
So art is the answer to your question. Hear me out. I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right. I am talking about the near term rather than the long term.
Yeah.
But imagine, fast forward 20 years, and we've got a world where, think about the jobs that are obsolete. The guys at the New York Stock Exchange yelling back and forth, 550, 560.
Right.
That's probably not going to be a big deal. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's going to fall by the wayside. If we get to the golden age nirvana kind of stuff that's possible, I think it's possible. Art is the thing that AI can't do. It can make pictures, but it can't make art. And I'm prideful, but I think I'm a good writer. And I use AI to write stuff all the time. But if it's important, I write it myself. And I can tell the difference. I can tell the difference when somebody sends me an email that was written by AI. And you can say that it gets better all the time. And maybe this is like romantic belief. I believe that writing is an art. I think painting is an art. You can tell Google Gemini to make you an image of a alligator tap dancing, which I've done. And it'll give you the pictures, but it doesn't give you art. The reason that Rembrandt's paintings are still like what they are, it's not technical representation of what, like, a photograph is more accurate than what Rembrandt did. But Rembrandt did art.
What you're saying is we're all going to be artists.
Yeah.
Nobody will have work.
Well,
hey, got to bring in politics. Maybe this guy or gal running for the Senate seat in Maine, maybe that's much more relevant that they're a songwriter. When they asked, what's your qualification for office?
I mean, I didn't hear that one, but
you know what I'm talking about?
No, I didn't hear that. But I got to say, like, given the work output that I see from the Senate, I mean, at least a songwriter's got to commit something to paper someday. I don't know. I mean, this sounds like woo-woo BS, but seriously, it's art. Art's the thing that can't be, and I don't know what that looks like 20 years from now. But if there's not something uniquely generative out of human beings, I think it's different. I think that oil painters, when photography first came in, were like, shit, we're out of business. Oil painters are not out of business, right? They do something different. It was never about the representational. And candidly,
I guess I'm not. You're right, and I'm not trying to debate Like, I mean, I love AI. I mean, I use it every day. I'm not like anti-AI, quite the contrary. I mean, I'm all about it. I guess I'm just, maybe I'm not trying to think about like what we're going to lose because of AI. I'm just thinking about, the dynamics going to be way different, and like, what is everybody going to do?
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to run companies, but like, I think about the stuff that, like, the productivity I'm gaining is, I could have hired somebody. I would have needed another person working for me to get the productivity, probably a couple of people working for me to get the productivity I'm getting now. Well, to me, I mean, you can look at it like, well, now you're just that much more powerful as a company. But conversely, you could look at it like there's two people that we don't need to hire because,
Right.
And I think at a macro level, that I guess that's what I'm thinking about. So
Yeah.
then it becomes, okay, you're right. The people that are at the top are the people that know how to manage it, manipulate it. If you're running a company and it's mostly AI, you got to know how to use it. And honestly, people are starting companies right now with AI, and it's just them. So it's very doable, but that's going to be 1% of the population. There's going to be other people that, I always think about, I don't know where this guy is now, so hopefully he's not a listener, but our sister was dating some guy, and I remember we were in college, and I'm home, and, and they were getting pretty serious, and he was like, yeah, I got a job at the Ford plant, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, man, you work there for a little while, you can move up, you can be a manager, and you can do this, you can do that. And he's like, no. I just want good hours. That's all I really care about in life. We kind of laughed about that, but I'm like, there is probably a big chunk of the population that, like, I'm not saying they're not ambitious, but they just want a job they can do 8 to 5 and be done. Well, I don't think that's going to exist in the world of AI.
Well, no, but if there's a benevolence boom, if there's the universal basic income, whatever you're talking, the golden age of prosperity, and we're able to afford it. I want to pick on that in a minute. But if that's there, that guy liked to go fishing. And maybe he can go fishing all the time instead of going to work. You're right about this. I'm struggling. In part, I think it's a defense mechanism because I'm afraid of it. I'm 7 years-ish from retirement, and I think about that a lot. What the hell am I going to do? And I've got stuff now that I will do that will keep me busy a little bit. But, one of the other ironies of AI is you look at what Google's DeepFold is doing with protein synthesis and drug. AI is creating new drugs now.
Yeah.
The thing is that we're all going to live to be 200 years old, and we're all going to be freaking bored for 200 years.
Yeah.
Unless we find our passion, we find our art, we find our thing. Our producer may want to cut this. I'm gonna throw this out there, and she can decide if she wants to keep it. But my spouse has an amazing capacity to find things interesting, to get involved, to dig in, to learn, to master things. This podcast, I'm going to throw a bone here. If you listen to other commercial podcasts, she is entirely self-taught in terms of how she edits the audio and produces all of the stuff, and I think that's amazing. And
yeah, I can't imagine. Well, I mean, we like to sit here and shoot the breeze, but none of this happens without somebody like her who figures this out.
Well, and I'm not just saying that to be nice, but the thing is that, trust us, listeners, this is not a profit motive venture that we're on here. Maybe someday, if you all would, find the show notes, buy our merch, and send us money. But this is not. But she does it for the love of it, and she does things for the love of it. I don't know if I've got that capability. I think so. There's a few things that I do hobby-wise that I think I could get really invested in. But most of my life has been determined by how do I create economic value for myself. I need to get over that hump, and I need to be more like her, and I need to take more satisfaction in things that bring me joy just because they bring me joy rather than because they bring me economic value. Because I think what I'm saying, and I think what is partly belies what you're saying, is that in a world of AI, good luck having economic value. That's going to leave us fast. So how do you build a productive life if you're not assessing it by economic value?
Well, and, we have a political podcast, and I mean, honestly, that strikes at the core of some of the political opinion and dialogue out there. It's like, well, there's people that are poor, so let's give them money so they're not poor. Well, just giving somebody money isn't going to help. We need to give somebody purpose. We need to give somebody a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And I think about if we get to a point where everybody's got everything's taken care of, which is great, it would be great if everybody was like our producer and was like, I'm going to be a continual learner. I'm going to go figure stuff out. I'm going to go do stuff. My wife is similar in the sense that, she goes and figures out how to do woodworking and stuff. I don't know. I'm like that. I may sit on my ass and drink all this bourbon that nobody's drinking. I mean, I worry about that myself. Like, I'm hustling and I'm working hard. I'm not doing it because I like my job, don't get me wrong, but I'm doing it because they're paying me for it. If I didn't have any of the money, like, I don't know what I'd do. It's kind of scary, like you said.
One of the great quotes from the patriarch, and I will raise a glass to Bob Clark, the OG, who was, by the way, a labor economist. One of his quotes was, "If it was that great, they wouldn't have to pay you to go."
That's why they call it, I say, that's why they call it work.
And I laugh at that. I mean, I've been able, not everybody has this luxury. And it's a good reminder to me of the luxury that I have. The arc of my career, there have been times when it really sucked, but it's put me in a position now where, like, I stay late at work, not because I have to, because I'm under the gun, but because I'm involved in something that I'm geeked about and I want to finish. You know what I mean?
Well,
like, I'm driven by that.
And I was thinking about that earlier today when I was thinking about this podcast. Like, I'm in a place in my career, I mean, I do fine, and I feel like, and it's a fairly high pressure job, and you got to perform. And if I don't, they may say, it's like, well, we're not interested anymore. So that's always a concern. But losing my job, if they were like, hey, you're not getting it done, we're going to get rid of you, I think I could make money. I'm not so much worried about getting a job making money. It's like, I want to contribute. Mm-hmm. It's this contribution, like, I believe in the team we've got. I believe in the business we got. I love it. I want to contribute. I want to add value. And I think to a degree, I think that's an aim of every human. They want to add value. They want to bring something to the table. And there's some people that are disaffected and they go down a different path. I would argue everybody really deep down wants to add value. I mean, maybe some people get burned out and stuff happens and it dampens that spirit. But don't you think everybody has that goal in mind?
No, I don't. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I totally relate to what you're saying. But it's kind of in the definition of add value. You're talking about adding value to a for-profit company. Good, like, and I'm not dissing that. I'm talking about adding value to a major university. That makes me feel good about what I do.
Well,
but some people add value to themselves. They just enjoy what they're doing, and I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I need more of
I
that.
guess the only tweak I'd make, and you're right. I mean, I'm not trying to quibble that I'm trying to add value to a for-profit company, but I think of it like as a social thing. Like, hey, I feel like the people I work with are my friends, and they're doing their thing, and like I want to be part of the team. I want to add, I want to carry my weight, not because necessarily even because I want to win the ball game, but like I want to be counted on. I don't want to just be sitting there on the sideline.
Right.
But it's a good point. Maybe some people are okay with sitting on the sideline, but I don't know. Even those people that are individualistic, there's a passion. I mean, maybe I'm just talking about passion in general, and whether it's a passion for a team or a passion for an individual. But the part I fear is that if we get to this world where all the really crappy stuff is handled by a machine, are we going to lack passion? Are we going to be? Am I going to be drinking a bottle of Antique 107 every day?
Well, I don't mean this to sound confrontational, but may I suggest part of the reason that this add value equation is so important to you is because you're good at it? Like you do add value. Like, I don't know if people that don't, and I think that I do too. I've risen as a leader in organizations that I've been in. Well, that's a self-fueling thing, right? Like, I like that because I succeed in that, and I get the accolades for succeeding, and it's sort of its own ecosystem. I mean, how much of that? I just don't know that. I think people are wired a lot different in that. And in a way, I envy people that don't have the need for the public accolade that I do.
Well, I don't mean public, but like, I guess I'm just thinking like just a passion in general for anything. I mean, our producer is a case in point. She doesn't do things because she's looking to get a pat in the back. She genuinely gets into stuff, which is awesome.
Do you have anything that's like that for you?
I mean, other than work, this and bourbon and golf. I don't know. Yeah, not much. I mean,
liquor and golf and bitching about
tobacco.
Politics to your brother. I mean, what else is there in life?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I have to say, I'm older than you, and I'm looking down the barrel of retirement. Boy, that's a way to carry.
It's pretty.
Like I say, I got quite a few years, but I have developed some things that are passions for me. Like I have like real passions outside of work. That's been an education and a game changer for me. I look at I take your comment about everybody wants to contribute. I don't completely disagree, but I would shape it a little bit. I mean, isn't this kind of like Maslow's hierarchy, self-actualization? You want to be your highest self.
Best self.
And I don't know. I think that you and I both are in a luxurious position because we have full-time employment of things that we enjoy. Like, I don't love every minute of my job. It's not like I never have stress. But by and large, I love what I do. I get a real kick out of what I do. And so...
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that don't have that luxury. There's a lot of people that are punching a clock because they need the money for, and so I just want to kind of like stipulate the advantage that I have. And I don't know that everybody's going to get the same drive out of work, but I think everybody's got those passions, whatever they are. They've got to uncover that.
Yeah, I mean, I think even somebody that, well, and maybe even more so, somebody who's in a job they don't want to be in, well, that would presume there's a job they do want to be in, or there's a place that they want to be that they're not in, and that drives, desire and interest. I just think if we're all, it's like the universal basic income thing. I mean, if all the bills are paid and you don't have to get out of bed, how many people get out of bed?
You get out of bed. I get out of bed. I don't get out of bed the first couple of weeks, but eventually I'm getting out of bed, and I'm going to figure something out to do. I'm going to unlock puzzles because that's how I'm wired. And you're the same. So, and can I say,
will everybody do that?
No, they won't. But they wouldn't anyway. I mean, these they wouldn't anyway, right? Like there's people that don't care about their jobs. They don't take a lot of satisfaction from contributing. They're doing their thing.
One of my best friends, I've said this before, he got so pissed one day I told this story, I think, on the podcast at one point. He got so pissed because they screwed him up at the gas station on base where they fix cars, and they screwed up his car, and he had a bad day. He got really pissed off, and this guy was being a jerk, the customer service guy, and he did not know what he was going to get unloaded on that day. And the line was something like, "Don't ever look in the mirror and ask yourself why you work at a blanking gas station."
And there's probably a lot to that, but it's entirely possible that gas station guy, when he clocked out, he clocked out. His car was not in the parking lot at 5:40 in the afternoon or 6:20 in the afternoon, and he washed his hands and he went home and he played with his kids. Yeah, I mean,
nothing against people working at gas stations. Don't get me wrong. This is just an individual.
But I guess I'm just saying that. I don't want to sound preachy to you, but like acknowledge the situation that you're in. You are a high value contributor, and you've been able to parlay that into positions where you're able to maximize that. That obviously that's pretty fulfilling. And I put myself in the same boat, but not everybody can have that job, and we got to find ways to derive value, quote.
I think that's exactly the question I was kind of posing from the get-go. It's like, how do you get to a place? Like you said, not everybody's going to want to contribute. Not everybody cares. But if you got to a place where there's really only a handful of people running the companies, because you've got all these systems and AI systems running the place, like, it just limits the number, the limit. It's like musical chairs. I mean, at some point, it just limits the number of chairs that you're going to be able to sit in and do something. And then it becomes, okay, then, or is the opposite, is there some other end of the spectrum? I mean, in how much, like they're going to spit out robots that can do work. But I think what they're going to figure out when they have these AI-driven robots is like, well, the robot costs a lot of money. Like, there's probably, if it's a $100,000 robot, are you going to have it doing a $100 task, or are you going to have it doing the more complex? You know what I mean? I mean,
the robot's been reviewing some of your work, and it realizes that it can take on a couple of projects that you've currently got.
Right.
I mentioned this before, but like, I know, again, working with college kids, have you looked at all what like dating and hookup culture is like in this world today? It is the role of apps and the...
Did I ever tell you that a friend of mine's got his own company, and sent us board, and we we have a board meeting twice a year, and then we go play golf. Well, this one year I'm playing golf, and I'm in the cart with one of his marketing people, and she's a young lady. She's 24, 25 years old or something. Really nice, we're chit-chatting about stuff. Well, we got to talking about dating, and, she's single, and I'm like, well, I met my wife. I mean, it truly was a God thing that I met my wife, because I'm like, I had no game. I'm telling her about some of my fashion faux pas. I mean, I was an idiot. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know what to say. Like, I should not have actually met a woman, let alone get married. So I'm like, it's crazy that it worked. And, we were just kind of laughing about it. And she was like, you know what? She's like, I'd love to meet a dork. I'd love to meet somebody that doesn't know how to dress and doesn't look cool. And I'm like, what? And she's like, no. I mean, like, all these apps, everybody you see is like perfect.
Bling.
And it's like, there's nothing real there. It's like, wow, that was really fascinating to me.
Well, I don't know the statistics, but there's two parallel trends. You can, or so I'm told, I mean, the kids are doing it all the time. You get on the app, you swipe right, you match, and it's very clear that we're looking for a transactional hookup, and like, it objectively ought to be easier to have sex now than it has ever been. But the rates of people's sexual behavior in this generation is at its absolute lowest in recorded history. Wow. I talk about, you had no game. We've got an entire generation of people with no game. And like seriously, I mean, I'm not trying to sound, creepy, but the delta between that of the low effort, relative ease of driving hookups and the absolute lack of it happening is kind of mind-blowing to me.
Wow.
And what does that augur for our future, right? Like
and then it goes to the whole, there's not going to be as many children. Well, maybe we've solved this thing. Like, there's not going to be as many jobs, but there's not going to be as many kids because nobody's having children. So the population is just going to be really small, and everybody's going to be happy.
It's equilibrium, which humanity survives, but there's a couple hundred of us. I mean, that's
exactly.
Yeah,
Logan's Run, man.
Right,
that movie. Yeah,
I don't know. It's just, again, like when I read this stuff, I have to find the article and we maybe show link it. But like the mechanisms and tools of hookup have never been easier, but the rate of hookup has never been lower. And I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, but that's crazy to me.
Well, I'm back to your conversation about our beloved producer. I mean, maybe the answer is, one of the joys I get out of AI is learning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much stuff that I'm like, I don't understand this. Explain this like I'm a 12-year-old. Like, boom, it explains it. I don't always say 12-year-old, but you liberals probably think we probably all need to be explained things like a 12-year-old. But no, I mean, I do love the learning piece of it. And maybe the answer is we get to a place where if everybody was learning more, there'd be a lot of value in that.
There sure would. The problem is, and I agree with you, and I'm the same way. Actually, one of my modules that I built for myself in Claude is I have it pretend you're the most knowledgeable tutor on this topic in the world. and then I just feed it topics when I'm interested. And I've said, talk to me like I don't understand the topic. I'll tell you when we can move faster.
Oh my gosh, I'm using that. That is so awesome.
And then I sit but ensure that I'm learning, quiz me, test me, make me state back to you what I'm learning.
Oh my gosh, Kent, that's so good.
It has been really good. And
That's
so
like the one I did at ChatGPT where I said, call me a jackass.
I want to see those words on the screen. Yeah, no, I think that the potential, I mean, these are the things, we've talked about some of the worry about the potential of AI going south, and I think that's real. There is a real definite potential upside. The medical thing is one. We're going to, that's a double-edged sword. We're going to cure a bunch of diseases, but already Social Security is going to run out of money. Wait till baby boomers are all living to 120. But the ability to learn and to keep intellectual stimulation.
You think about that. Back to this guy that when I started this, that he just graduated college and he's got 30 years in the workforce. Can you imagine how valuable an employee you would be if you were constantly learning with AI-driven tools like your custom Claude, where every topic, I mean, just think about that, 30 years of intense learning. I mean, you think of the wisdom you could develop. It's amazing.
Yeah. Those are the things that I hope that we can get out of this. I did put a pin in this, and because we are a politics podcast, I just want to argue this for a little bit. Universal basic income is a great place, kind of a flashpoint to talk about this. Because you hear a guy like Elon Musk saying, well, when we reach the golden age and the machines do everything for us and we're going to live these lives of luxury. The theory kind of is, and I'm absolutely putting words in his mouth, but tell me if this sounds like the kind of thing you would hear. Well, once we solve all of these kind of economic tensions, when the machines can do all this stuff for us, we're going to have, like, resources are going to be the least of our problems. We're going to have all this covered, and so we can be benevolent and we can create opportunities for people, and we can alleviate people from the burden of work, and they can just live these good lives. What in the hell do we think will be different then? We live today in the most prosperous nation that has ever been on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but a system of socialized medicine is like a flashpoint that people are ready to take up arms over. So why would we think, like, I can see a vision of what this could be, but then I look at reality and where we are. We're already rich enough. I'm not saying that we've got an unlimited, but right by world global comparative standards, we won the lottery, and we still, some of it's for good reasons. I'm gonna give you props for that. I completely agree that just throwing money at people, by and large, has not been good. If there's not some development of learning, of people finding passion and purpose, like, I think those are all important. But seriously, if we can't afford to be benevolent in the United States right now, what is 20 years of joblessness created by AI going to move us closer to benevolent society? I don't think so.
I agree 1,000% with you, because I think it's all smoke and mirrors. I think what's going to happen, you talk about income concentration. What's going to happen is the three guys that run every company are going to be billionaires.
Yeah. And
everybody else, all the rest of us, are going to be sweeping the floor someplace. I do not believe that. And I think it's possible that okay, maybe there's enough benevolence and enough AI tools to keep everybody healthy, but maybe it's a bigger philosophical question. Is it really possible to eradicate poverty? Or will poverty always exist in every society? Because there's going to be, well, it's like the whole communist theory. I mean, if we all had $1 million, it wouldn't be worth $1 million.
I think there's a fork in the road that's worth exploring there. And that is, what is the definition of poverty? If the definition of poverty is the poorest 15% of a population, again, I don't want to paper over or denigrate the experience of people that have low incomes in this country. But if I were going to be in the bottom 15% of a population, the United States in 2026 would be higher on my list than Nigeria ever. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Right, yeah.
if this is proportionality, the answer to your question is no, we never solve poverty, because there's always going to be a bottom 15% of income. But if we look about poverty as being the absence of poverty being able to afford basic needs met, right? Like you have housing, you have food, you have clothing, you have shelter, you have you have medicine, you have things that we can fix that, right? We can't make everybody equal. We can. The problem is that the goalposts move on us with that. That's the problem with that. I think a bigger worry is talking about our Gen Alpha and Gen Z people who can't afford to buy homes.
Yes. Yeah, that's a much bigger deal.
Like that is a kind of issue that we ought to be able to figure out. And I'm not saying that we ought to hand out houses and cars like Oprah, but it is a huge societal problem if a double income middle class couple can't afford to buy a house. That's a serious concern for us. And I think we've overranked home ownership. There's nothing wrong with renting either. But those same couples, they can't afford rent in big cities either.
Yeah, right.
That's a huge issue.
Well,
If we can't figure that out with all of our AI largesse, and I'm not confident.
And I'm just not confident that what is the motivation, or what is the take away motivation? What is the viable systematic way? Because I don't think it is back to like we have political arguments. Like neither one of us want people to be living in the streets and suffering. I think I think we can say that. Now, where we differ is how do we prevent people from living in the streets and suffering, and that's where we often may have disagreements. But I think part of the problem is like it's back to that. Oh, we're just going to give everybody universal basic income. Well, that alone isn't going to fix the problem. I mean, if everybody's getting a check, well, now, everybody gets $5,000 a month. Well, now, if you really want a nice apartment, it's $10,000. There's like this natural. There's all these natural progressions to make more and more and more and get more and more and more. Yeah, I don't know. Is it going to change, or is it just going to keep getting worse?
I'm not confident, unfortunately. I wish I could be more sanguine about this, but I think the incentives are really bad. The incentives for the AI companies are to make money for themselves and to just that narrow slice of people. The incentives for landlords, I don't know. I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, but I'm also a capitalist, and Mom Donnie in New York and rent control and stuff, that scares me. There's a great book. It's It's probably in its 30th edition right now. I read it as a part of my macroeconomics class at Michigan State in 1987. It's called The Economics of Public Policy Issues, and it was eye-opening to me. I mean, it was speaking to me at the time because I would have considered myself a Republican, but it's got a chapter on all of the places that, like, real economic theory hits the rubber hits the road with reality, and rent control is one of them. Rent control is a recipe for housing unaffordability or inaccessibility, because people don't build housing if they can't get market rates for it. So you got to find other ways to affect the market. I'm not sure that everybody gets a paycheck from universal basic income is the necessary way. If you don't also think about the economic incentives to build housing, just dumping money on the consumer doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah. I guess all I've really taken out of this conversation, Kent, the one positive thing I've gotten out of this conversation is there's going to be a lot more allocated bourbon because these kids aren't drinking. So that's good. I've got that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great things, but candidly, now they start solving all of these medical problems, and, my retirement plan doesn't, I'm not
I have 80 years of
I'm not
retirement.
capitalized to live to 170, and so, we're going to have to deal with that somehow.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.